In my last video, I briefly touched on the idea of receiving messages from God. In this video, I'd like to explore that concept some more. To begin, let's discuss our purpose here on Earth. Why are we here? Are we just random accidents of the universe? Are we just dust in the wind, with no real meaning or purpose in life? I think, or hope, that if you are watching this video, you don't subscribe to that hardcore materialistic viewpoint. I hope that you believe that this grand metaphoric watch we are in has a watchmaker, that we are part of the Creator's creation, a part of the mind of God. And so, going with the idea of deliberate existence, we circle back to the question, why are we here? This is a deep philosophical debate in its own right, perhaps the basis of a future video. But as seekers we ask, how do we begin to understand our own personal raison d'etre, as the French call it, our meaning or purpose? And we explore that answer through the many avenues available to us. The seeker can explore through the holy text of each religion. There are also the many more esoteric teachings and philosophies that have been handed down through the ages, or more recently. Prayer, meditation, and contemplation, which we can put under the umbrella of personal studies, is yet another avenue to explore our purpose. Which of the mentioned avenues are correct? The answer to this question is as varied as snowflakes and as individual as our fingerprint. There are loud voices claiming this or that is the only answer, but the real answer is the one which is right for you. And for most of us, it is a lifetime of seeking to get the full scope of where, when, and how we can uncover our answers. But there is one overarching idea which we can arrive. That is, in every day and in everything that we experience, God speaks to us. The very stuff of our life is there to provide insight. Every moment of every day allows us the opportunity for a greater understanding of ourselves and how to walk closer to that higher power, if only we are mindful of it. I'd like to share with you my top 3 mindful practices to access this closer walking with the Creator. And this has to do with the third avenue mentioned, that of prayer, meditation, and contemplation. Prayer is twofold. It can be expressing gratitude as well as supplication to your higher power. Contemplation is focusing the mind upon a particular idea or activity. It is thoughtful, reflective, and deliberative. Meditation is quieting the mind. It is stopping the mental chatter that takes up space within us and doesn't allow for the still, small voice of our higher power to be heard. If one were to take the Eastern concept of yin-yang, in which one portion of the symbol represents being active and the other as receptive, we might say that prayer and contemplation are more yang, and meditation is more yin. Although the small circle of opposing color tells us that in receptivity is the seed of activity, and in activity the seed of receptivity. So there are no absolutes, and, as depicted by the circle, no beginning or ending either. In summation, prayer is talking to God. Contemplation is thinking about and studying the ways of God, and meditation is listening to God. So if we want to be more precise in regards to the yin-yang symbol, it could be shown as partitioned into 3 sections instead of 2, when representing this trifecta of prayer, contemplation, and meditation, wherein each has the seed of the other. Mindfully, deliberately, using these aspects of personal study can be a resource for working with various aspects of life, through which avenues for personal development are opened. Nature, as is everything, is within the mind of God, and so if we become more attuned to nature, we may begin to hear this voice and gain understanding. Some of my greatest insights have come to me while being silent and still in the woods, by the ocean, or sitting in my own backyard. The concept of flowing with a situation instead of forcing it can be taught to us while watching a stream and seeing how the water will relentlessly arrive at its destination by flowing around and over rocks and other obstacles, teaching us perhaps to learn the lesson of fluidity in the moment. Animals can teach lessons as well, not only through a particular characteristic that it has, such as the industriousness of the beaver, the loyalty of a dog, or the slow but steady pace of the tortoise, but also by its presence. For example, deer have appeared to me in many an odd place, and they seem to show up when I am deep in thought or arriving at a conclusion. Let me give an example. A number of years ago, my dad passed away. He was my stepfather, but he helped raise me. We had known the end was near, and so I went out to be with him. In between the time of his passing and when the funeral would be held, I felt I needed to clear my head, and so I took a road trip. While driving along the New York State Turnpike, I had time to think about the words I wanted to say at his service. I put on particular music which helps me in my healing process, and just drove and drove and drove for hours. I thought about all the ways he had helped me, how he earned the title of Dad because he treated me like his daughter. As the words for his tribute started formulating, I noticed something peculiar outside my car window. On the light pole besides the highway was a hawk. But instead of it looking out onto the field beside the road, it was turned toward the highway. It was odd, but I didn't think too much about it until the next light pole came up, and another hawk was sitting there. It too was facing the highway. When the third light pole came into view, and again a hawk was there, and facing the highway, it no longer seemed like a coincidence. I flashed to a conversation I had with my stepbrother's wife. When we were choosing the memorial card, I had wanted the card with a deer on the cover, because I thought that that is what Dad would have liked. But she disagreed, saying that he loved birds, and so we got one with a soaring eagle on it instead. With that in mind, the hawk's presence started to take on a more special meaning. It was like they were acknowledging my efforts to lay out a tribute to Dad, and letting me know that he was near. The hawks on the highway lasted for what seemed about a mile, and just as I mentally put together the last sentence of my tribute, the next lamp pole was empty. But as I rounded the bend, a field appeared, and a huge herd of deer were there, as though to provide an affirmation of the completeness of my tribute and the healing of my sad heart. My story might seem a little fanciful to you, and you might feel some skepticism about my conclusions, but I urge you to consider this idea of nature showing up not randomly, but specifically to be the expression of the Creator, reminding us that, yes, dear one, I am here. The next time you are in your garden deep in thought and a bird starts to call, it might just be the voice of your higher power, if only you are open to hearing. Another aspect of personal study is what I call the mirror. As I said before, we are all living in the mind of God. And this reality, this quote-unquote outside world, as solid as it seems, is really just a mental construct. Kind of like the holodeck in the TV show Star Trek: The Next Generation. Sorry, I don't mean to get all sci-fi on you, but it's really a good example. If you aren't familiar with the holodeck, The basic idea is that the Starfleet crew can go in and create a world in which they can relax, have an adventure, or whatever they want to do without ever having to leave the ship. A more familiar reference might be the experience Dorothy has. Her house landing in Oz, the good and evil witches, making friends, and meeting the wizard. When she wakes up, she realizes it was all a dream, but it seems so real. A good resource for reading more about this concept is The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. I'm telling you about this holographic idea to lay the groundwork for what I call the mirror. So if we are living in some sort of holographic reality, then what if we have agreed that what happens outside of us is a reflection of our interior world? Here's an example. You make a trip to the grocery store just to get a few items. On the way to the store, a driver cuts you off on a turn. In the parking lot, you spy a spot close to the door. As you approach, someone else pulls in. Now you grab your cart. You want to speedily get your items and go. But in every aisle you turn into, someone is in your way, going slow, standing in front of the item you want. Finally, you have your things and you head to the cashier. Assessing the lines, you choose what you think is the shortest, but instead it takes the longest. Price checks, issues with paying, or other annoyances delay your departure from the store. At long last, you're in front of the cashier, but now it's time for her to clock out, so you have to wait for the next cashier to clock in and open up her register. Returning to your car, you now have to wait to back out while people shuffle through the space behind your car. Arriving home, you say to yourself, "What the heck just happened?" Sound familiar? Perhaps what you just experienced is the holographic reflection, the mirror of an inward issue. Are you angry with yourself, not treating yourself with the honor and love you should? Have you been stopping yourself somehow, holding back from something that gives you joy and fulfillment? Sometimes this reflected, discordant outer world can provide insight into discord within ourselves that is bubbling under the surface, just below the level of our awareness. This is the perfect time to be still and see what it is that the mirror is telling us. The third aspect of personal development is what I call working with catalyst. Working with catalyst takes a while to completely unpack, so we are going to just brush the surface of it here. One of my esoteric teachings that I have been studying for years is the Law of One. The overall idea of these teachings is that we are aspects of God, or as God is called in these teachings, the One Infinite Creator. We are here to learn from our experiences in each incarnation, and in this way grow, evolve, or ascend back into our higher state of being. How this is done is through what is termed catalyst. Catalyst is mostly used as a chemistry term. It means a substance which causes a reaction to move forward at a much more rapid rate than if it were not present. An example of this is certain chemical compounds called enzymes in the body which aid in digestion and the generation of energy. If we waited around for the food we ate to digest and produce energy, without these enzymes, we wouldn't be able to move and think the way we do. We'd be more like glaciers or boulders than human beings. As a science nerd, I love that the Law of One uses this term, because it encompasses the idea of speeding up the progress of our learning. Imagine how slowly we would develop if we were never challenged. Would Venus Williams or Tiger Woods have become as great if they didn't have world-class players against whom they competed? Being confronted with increasingly formidable challenges, overcoming huge obstacles, difficult or painful experiences are all catalysts through which we work to become the greatest version of ourselves. An example of a catalyst might be a child who has a hard life in the inner city and will eventually get recruited to join a gang. Throughout his young life, he gets opportunities to select a path. He's hungry and steals a candy bar. Does he own up to it when confronted, or does he lie? He's playing a pickup game of basketball. A neighborhood boy who isn't very good asks to play. The others make fun of him. This young man feels badly and wants to include the neighbor. Does he stand up to the bullying or remain silent? Each life situation allows him to explore who he really is. The increasingly difficult catalysts build to the point of choosing whether to become a gang member or be a man standing in his own power. So in closing, what I'd like to say is this. In each and every moment, we have an opportunity to become a greater version of ourselves. Perhaps, starting with once a day, when you go to take a breath, just stop first and draw the breath in slowly. Let's do it now. Sit tall and close your eyes. Slowly begin to fill your lungs with air. Notice the coolness at your nostrils and the passage of the air deeper into your sinuses. Notice the expansion of your belly and chest. Hold the breath for just a moment, envisioning vibrant blue bubbles of oxygen molecules enriching your bloodstream. As you slowly release the breath, say thank you to yourself and to Great Spirit for that moment. What we just did was using all three components of the pathway: meditation, contemplation, and prayer, in a way that is thoughtful and purposeful. There are other ways of incorporating the three components of the pathway in a more deliberate way. How about that first waking moment of the day, while still enjoying the warmth of the bed sheets and pillow? Take a long, slow stretch with gratitude for the rest you just had. Maybe in the shower, taking a moment to feel the warm water cascading over your body, just feeling it and doing nothing else. Perhaps when eating a bowl of ice cream, taking that next spoonful, holding it up for consideration first, observing the creaminess, the beginnings of melting, and then placing it in your mouth, fully allowing each sensation, the taste, the texture, the coolness, to inform you of its delights. Everything we do and say can be a pathway to the Creator, can be an expression of gratitude and worship, learning and growth. Even eating that bowl of ice cream can be the act of a deliberate soul living a deliberate life. The love, light, and kindness in me honors the love, light, and kindness in you.